It's weird to me. Like, there's gentleman spy, there's gentleman sleuth, there's gentleman thief. Now there's gentleman cannibal.
I mean, yeah, I guess so. He is a gentleman, isn't he? I mean, like he's a gentleman who eats people.
Well, it's so interesting. Like they do. I mean, they do an incredible job. The fact that we talk about this character and like he's so part of like pop culture this many years later, but he's so fundamentally unlikable. But they create a line where he won't cross. He won't cross the line of sexual assault. And if anyone does, that's too far. He's going to kill you.
Oh, what?
He's not uncouth.
He's not uncouth.
Where do they say that?
Well, he kills the prisoner that jerks off on her.
Yeah, he kills Migs. Or
He's so incensed at the sexual
Oh,
assault.
is that why he kills
It's,
him?
it's not explicitly stated that it's the sexual aspect of it. He just thought that Miggs was like, it was a discourtity and it was rude and gross that he did that.
Yeah.
He never explicitly says like, I don't dig sex stuff.
But I guess it's entirely possible I missed that. I feel like the scenes with Anthony Hopkins, I'm just like so entranced by his performance. I feel like sometimes I'm like not. I miss lines and stuff because I'm like just like studying his face and like the way he portrays this character is just so great. So I totally could have missed that he mentioned that.
I don't
like
think it's him that mentions it. It's someone else that mentions it.
The implication you're saying is that he killed Miggs for the impropriety of...
That's right.
And like he wasn't really that helpful to Clarice until that happened. And he's like, Clarice, come here. And then he like gives her an info dump because she got assaulted.
Yeah.
And I found that a weird thing about him. But it works because you're like, oh, he's okay. He's totally okay. And like he's kind of like the other male in the movie. You're like, yeah, he's fine.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic that we like him, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like aspirational. It's like there's aspects of him that you want to be. Like, wouldn't you want to be as civilized and cool and draw as good as him and like have that cool accent and be so smart? Like,
I think it's the competence, it's the power that is attractive, I think, where we respect him. We might not like him as a person, but we respect his competence.
Well, this movie totally is one of the reasons why I don't know if you guys had this, but I knew a bunch of people that were like, I'm totally a sociopath. Because they were like, I'm trying to be like, I'm super intelligent. I'm like above it all. I'm so smart.
Yeah.
And then you identify as a sociopath because of like people like Hannibal Lecter. And it's like, what?
And sometimes I feel like eating people.
all those aspects of his character, though, even though those are benefit or the good traits, values, they all play into how terrifying he is too.
Right.
Though.
Yeah, totally.
He's like a super intelligent spider or something like that. You know, like I can't understand your mind. I just know you're a killing machine.
Yeah.
And I'm scared of you. Like I wanna be in your good books because you can easily kill me.
Well,
totally.
Yeah. Even just the fact that he's a therapist, like a therapist is so good at kind of getting deeper than you necessarily want a person to go.
Right.
And he's got malicious intent. So like that's scary.
And he pushes the boundaries immediately. He knows what the rules are. He knows that she's not supposed to get close to the glass. And the first thing he does is show me your credentials. Closer. He pushes her to see how far he can push her, to see what her limits are.
I think a really good example of like the kind of character that Hannibal Lecter is, as well as like the relationship he has with Clarice, is when after Hannibal leaves, disappears, so to speak, Clarice is walking through the FBI with her friend, and she's like, "Oh, aren't you scared that Hannibal Lecter is going to come after you?" And Clarice is like, "Yeah, he would consider it rude." Like, it kind of just like shows you that he is more of a courteous serial killer, or he likes her. He kind of relates with her over the fact that
he has principles.
Well, it's an interesting idea because he's not. I mean, you said he was a gentleman cannibal, but like, he's not a gentleman in the sense that like, the gentleman is nice to everybody, right? He's less of a gentleman, more of like a principled human who only extends courtesies to other humans that he also comes to respect.
But we don't really see him be discourteous to people. Like even the guards he kills, he's kind and like he peacefully sits back and has his thing.
Oh, that's manipulation.
You wouldn't call that courtesy because he kills them.
But is anything he does like really kind or courteous? Like,
I think he helps.
He loves the appearance of it.
But I think that's why the character is so interesting because Clarice is a special case.
Fair.
She comes to talk to him, and most people that he interacts with, he's like, "You are ants to me. I'm a predator. You're prey. You're nothing. You're not actual real humans." It's kind of like, it's like this concept in Dune, because James got me on Dune. I'm going to relate it to Dune.
Yes.
In Dune, they go through this like pain trial process called the What's it called, James?
Oh, I was looking at my notes.
Is that when Timothy Chalamet puts his hand in the
yeah,
box?
yeah, the thing in the box.
Oh, yeah, that
I
part.
really, but anyways,
the ink Jabbar or something?
the Gom Jabbar.
Yeah.
Gom
The Gom Jabbar, where you put your hand in a pain box and it just like the pain gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And if you can withstand the pain without bringing your hand out of the box, then you are deemed a quote unquote human by the people who do it. And Paul, the main character, leaves his hand in the longest out of all of them. So he's like, oh, he's more than human. But anyways, Anthony Hopkins, Hannibal Lecter kind of does this process where, Clarice comes and talks to him and he tests her, right? He wants to know about her personal details, and throughout their interaction, he kind of like gains respect for her. So then she ascends to this level where he's like, I won't consider killing you. At the end,
fair.
he says, I have no plans to pursue you.
Do you
For now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dinner's always coming every day. Do you think that when she offers him the deal, he actually receives that kindness, or do you think that he's immediately like conniving how to take advantage of it?
Well, it's not kindness per se. But
Well, she's making a deal, but it's like a pretty good deal to like go to a prison where she'll be able to, I mean, she's lying about it too.
yeah.
Like, what do you think he's receiving at that point? Because I think like that's a turning point in their character, like their relationship as well.
I think that it probably says something that she is willing to bring him this deal, I guess. But I didn't view that so much as like a relationship building thing as it was like a professional relationship sort of like they're okay, I agree to work together. We're going into business. But it's less like now I know you as a friend sort of thing. I feel like that does happen later.
I think their relationship expands for the first time when she's willing to be vulnerable. She knows she's not
yes.
supposed to let him into her head,
Yeah.
but she actually does.
Yeah.
And that's what fascinates him.
Yeah.
And because that's the beginning of the quid pro quo. And so that's when he begins to respect her.
Well, let's talk about that scene. I love it. That's such an interesting scene. They say the shouting of the lambs twice, but never silence of the lambs.
Screaming.
Screaming of the
But
lambs.
yeah, they don't say. I'm like waiting for them
But
to say silence.
I think it's
Yeah.
such a cool choice because, like, obviously, every time you hear "Screaming of the Lambs," your mind is like, "That's almost."
There's gonna be silence?
But then they never say it, and like it kind of like leaves a silence in your mind a little bit, like a little bit of a gap for you to fill in.
Totally.
Well, it also makes you think about the title and think like, oh, that's actually like her arc. That's what she's going for in this movie, is trying to silence the lambs.
Right.
Totally.
Right. By being competent or recognized or whatever.
I just love how enthralled he is. He's just like, yes,
Yeah.
tell me more.
The intensity
Why
of
did you leave?
man.
Yeah.
And so like I mentioned the cinematography and we talked a little bit about this, what'd you call it?
The subjective camera?
Subjective camera. And it's not only that the reason I love it so much is that it's not only that they have, these shots where the person's looking right at the camera and, that's kind of creepy or weird or unsettling. It's the fact that some characters are framed that way and other characters are not. In the early scenes, like the first scene where Clarice meets Hannibal, there's some shots where it's like his face takes up the full frame and he's looking directly at the camera, but then it cuts back to her and she's a lot farther back from the camera. We see her head and shoulders and everything, and she's also not looking directly at the camera. She's looking off screen. So it contributes to that feeling of, it's like a power imbalance, right? He's seeing directly into our soul and we see all his competence and his power, and it cuts back to her and she's
Also
doesn't have
sitting.
any.
She's sitting in that first scene.
Right, there's that too, yeah. He's looking down at her and she's looking up.
Later on, when she comes back with the deal, the dossier that she puts and presents, like, look, you're going to live in this island or whatever.
Yeah.
She's standing in that scene and he's sitting.
Man, I wish I could remember exactly what she said, but there's a point in that conversation. It might be a later one when he's still in like the dungeon, where she kind of turns things around and asks him a question, and he gets taken off guard a little bit. And so the framing for that one is it's a little closer on her face when she turns it around on him. And I thought, like, just the blocking, they do such a good job in this movie.
Are you talking about the time where they're talking about serial killers and she says like they all take they all have like a trophy that they take, and then he says, I didn't have one. He's like, well, you ate yours.
Yes.
And then that's when he breaks eye contact with her.
Exactly.
He looks to the side.
That's exactly the moment I'm talking about. Yeah, it was such a good moment too, because you see that he's not like a complete. It humanizes him a little bit because he's like, I have to think about that.
Yeah, it's like they're really playing tennis now.
Yeah,
like he's got someone to play with.